There we go. Um, yes, this is exciting. I'm super excited to be here today. I appreciate Chris and OhioX for just providing a platform first and foremost, and then Ashland University MBA programs for playing sponsor for it. So this is it's always good to be able to use a platform to get your message out. So I'm always grateful for that. Um, as Chris mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of Renter Mentor, and we are a tech company that helps connect people to affordable housing. We do that through our customer relationship management tool that provides a more secure landlord tenant process, as well as automated business solutions for housing agencies and community-based organizations that service the space. We like to say that we're leading the future of affordable housing. And before I dive too deep into it, I want to kind of break the ice and give people an idea about who I am in context of the Ohio scene and kind of how I got into this affordable housing conversation. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, born and raised, where I went to St. Xavier High School. I was a part of the 2007-2008 state football championship team there, which was the only championship I ever won is as far as athletics. I come from a family of all collegiate athletes besides me, so it's very ironic. But I was the first champion of the family, so it's always good to share. But anyone from the Cincinnati area familiar with St. Xavier, that's my alma mater. I then went to Ohio University, where I studied strategic health and wellness communication. And then that led me to moving to Columbus, where I found a career at the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority. And that's where I will start diving into how I got the idea of Renter Mentor and, really some of the pain points that I learned early on in my career at the Housing Authority. This is I'm on the left-hand side right here. I started my career at the Housing Authority as a front desk receptionist, where it really, it wasn't the ideal situation for me to come in. But at this current time, I really, I was in need of a job for benefits purposes. I was getting ready to get off of my mom's and my dad's insurance, so I needed my first big boy job. So I dived in with the open mind of I did not know what the housing authority really did in terms of outside of being the administrators of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8. And so, yeah, it was really a new industry for me in terms of just housing and things like that. But I came in with an open mind, and the front desk actually was a hidden gem in disguise, because what it did was it put me right in front of everyone that the housing authority serves in terms of program participants. So the tenants that were receiving rental subsidy from these programs, all the way to the landlords that were opening up their doors, to just overall business professionals who were the community partners of the agency, who, how they were involved, the different departments. This was one of the few positions that actually dealt with every position or every department within the housing authority, just because, essentially we were the gatekeepers to it all. So it was a good way for me to, really get my feet on the ground, establish my roots. But ultimately, I was at the front line of these problems that were being reported by not just the program participants, but also the general public. So the program, the Section 8 program is federally funded and it's open to anyone. But the things is, and this is kind of where, as the front desk, where your job gets hectic, is voucher issuance or the rental subsidy is limited. There's long wait lists to become a voucher holder. And there's a high need. Here in Central Ohio alone, we're in a over 54 plus thousand unit deficit of affordable housing. So there is demand. So I got to not only hear from the landlords or from the tenants of how hard it was to find someone to accept their housing choice voucher, but also how the landlords couldn't find either. You know, they had the inventory. So I saw a huge disconnect in terms of the information and how it was to go about the connection piece. So that was, all came and stemmed from the front desk. I was only at the position for 8 months, but it was a critical position in terms of my development, in terms of the business acumen of the housing industry and the core problems. So the front desk really made me look deeper into like, okay, what is the issue? Because how I see and my knowledge of the voucher program is that, it just substitutes money. The landlords will still get a payment from the housing authority. It's just that you're getting a portion from the tenant and then the other portion from uh, the uh, the housing authority. So I didn't really see why there was a big disconnect in that, outside of one, the program as a national whole serves 2.2 million low to moderate income households. But there's only 695,000 landlords that service the space. So it's very underserved population. And I would later find out why in my next role. But the second thing that I would that the front desk position allowed me to learn was the actual scope of the demographic and what, low to moderate income, how broad that really is, and just how random, the pool of the demographic really is. So you're dealing with a high elderly disabled population. You're dealing with a lot of veterans. There's the disparities of a lot of African Americans being on there, and mainly women. At that, there was 83% women that are using these rental subsidy programs. So it gave me a true scope of, just kind of the overlap problem of just underserved industry, and then who actually it is targeted to when people say affordable housing. This is my first day once I got promoted to advisor into the application department at the housing authority. And here I thought my role was going to be, I was going to hear less of the problems, because I felt, as we called it in the applications department, we were the happy component of this process, because in the applications department, we were the ones issuing the vouchers, explaining the eligibilities to everyone. So it was a good thing when you got a letter from us and things like that. But when I got into that desk deeply, it was all types of problems from an administrative standpoint that I started seeing internally from being a municipality, how we were causing barriers because of due to a lack of manual. It was a lot of manual processes, for one, and with these manual processes. They could be, technology for sure could be of use to help automate and prevent some of the data entry points, in which would help us as a worker, could have helped me. But in terms of really helping our clients, the landlords and the tenants, standpoint, to help them, because when we go back to that low to moderate demographic, and like I said, that scope, there's a lot of transportation issues, there's literacy issues that come up, even not just from the fact of you can't read what I'm putting in front of you, but also you can't communicate with me because you may be a Somali African. We have a high Somali population here in Central Ohio, and if we did not have an interpreter readily available, you cannot complete your paperwork. So there was a lot of back and forth in terms of how the process could be better. how information could be dispersed. There was a lot of things in terms of just the overall education piece not being centralized for these landlords and these tenants that were causing a lot of back and forth issues in terms of compliance with the paperwork, with the initial inspections. So it was just a lot being thrown at that desk, and more issues that I was hearing that made me want to dive deeper into that problem. Another thing that was huge from this standpoint of after issuancing these vouchers, these folks had only 90 days to find a housing before the vouchers would expire. And without really medical reasons, essentially a lot of families will lose them because of the administrative burdens, because of something that I was finding out as being a pattern was scams within the space. There were a lot of tenants that were getting, first month security deposits took in from different platforms out there. This is not a bad session on anyone, but just a lot of mainstream platforms where it really lacked a lot of accountability in terms of the security methods of how you communicate with that landlord-tenant relationship, which really affected the demographic a lot. Because even though it may be $700, $1,400, and that might not be a lot to you and I, but for this particular demographic, that could really be the difference between being able to move into a house and having to check into a shelter. So really seeing the scope of scams that were going on as well. So to sum it all up, what I saw in my 4 years at working at the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority was just a very uncentralized way to one, locate a voucher-friendly landlord or affordable landlord, and then that the municipalities, the processes were very unnecessarily complicated and high risk, where the property wasn't guaranteed to pass the inspections, and ultimately could possibly lead to voucher expiration. So this is just a picture of overall, what the current ecosystem and the problem in which a lot of people were experiencing. So after 4 years, I decided I could do more outside of my chair that I had at the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority. And I decided to make it my mission to, find a more streamlined and safe and efficient way to connect these tenants as well as these landlords together. And how I first did it was through my journey. How I started implementing that was last April, actually. I entered a pitch competition. It was a weekend hackathon called Give Back Hack for Social Good, where I came in as an individual and I was able to form a team, pitch my idea. A team was formed. And this was where we were able to kind of it was literally 2 weekends, but literally hack up a good presentation, a nice pitch. Here we'll see, this was literally our first MVP. It was nothing coded out. Here it was just our developer did some hacking and we added some certain features that we felt that in terms of validation, in terms of the problem that we needed to differentiate how to start getting voucher landlords and those tenants connected. So this was our first profile that we kind of created to start. That was a huge thing for our platform, was getting clarity on who the landlords are. And then for the tenants, there was a need from the landlords that we were able to get a hold of for clarity of what their type of rental history, how do they treat units? Because there's a huge stereotype around affordable housing, and especially the Housing Choice Voucher Program of people wrecking homes and no one works and things like that. So it was a huge need to be able to help the tenants in particular, be able to help them sell themselves to the landlord, and for us to make sure that the tenants were safe, and this was the actual landlord that they were dealing with in the space. So this was our first kind of MVP. From that competition, I was able to win $7,500 in seed money and some other in-kind resources that kind of, was really the springboard of this idea, because I'm still in ideation phase at this time. And after winning this money, the founder of Give Back Hack, she is a Cover My Meds employee, and she was actually one of the kind of original teammate members. And she set me aside and she was like, congratulations, I'm glad that you got this money, well deserved. And she just really just was like, but I don't want you to spend it on development. She basically explained the story of how Cover My Meds built their first kind of minimum value product. And of course, they had more than $7,500. They had, I believe it was close to almost $500,000 or maybe even $1 million, she said, and they built it and it didn't work. And they had to essentially throw it away. So she was just giving me this warning to, one, kind of, abreast me of the development process and what the design thinking, especially when you have a two-headed and then three-headed market size after we later developed. But really showing us the importance of the design thinking and how to strategically go about that. So with keeping that in mind, we then jumped into an accelerator called Sea Change. It was 14 weeks. Sea Change stands for Social Entrepreneurs or Social Enterprise Accelerator. And for those 14 weeks, we were able to do focus groups and, talk about not only the idea, but what was really the problem at large, and to get a better, deeper understanding. We worked with interns. These were our Chase interns that we were able to get that helped us with some user validation throughout that. And we hosted different community conversations. This was from the big table last August, where we invited a bunch of not just landlords that had Section 8 vouchers, but new interested landlords, also community agency leaders, retired agency leaders here, and really got to dive in all different levels. So all that was necessary during and was needed, and it served a lot of value, where we were able to come up with a manual MVP. A lot of the bulk of our money came from really branding, so our logo and things like that early on. But we came up with this manual MVP during this accelerator that allowed us to test, as we learned in the design thinking, as we call it, our riskiest assumption. And our riskiest assumption at this time during the accelerator was, what is the demand, and, how do we go about distributing the information? So our riskiest assumption was that there was a need for either a list or updated way to connect with a voucher friendly landlord. And the way that we did that manually, and this was coming from just the mentorship that we got through, is once you do something manually, you can then mask your processes with, technology. So we were able to manually accumulate a list of 130 total landlords and property managers, names, emails, and phone numbers that we were able to compile over that 14-week accelerator. And then how we tested it, that this list was valuable, was we gave it to 30 individuals that were voucher friendly, that had vouchers, sorry. And out of those 30 individuals, 22 were able to connect through using that list of 130. So there was a kind of an agreement before I would give out the list for them, was to make sure that they reported back. That was the only thing to get the list, was that you let me know if you connected. I didn't care who it was. I just wanted to make sure that if you got a connection or you were able to use your voucher, that you let me know. And 22 of those households were able to reach back and confirm that they were able to connect. And from there, we were able to finished the accelerator strong, winning another additional $15,000. And at that point, after this accelerator, this was kind of my, and sorry if you're hearing the phone in the background here. At this point, this was enough validation because still at this point, we had not developed anything, and was able to win about $23,000, a little over that, just off our ideas, off of my idea. So that was enough validation for me to make that big leap last October, to see what, I was obviously on, but to really see what I could do if I put full effort into this, after this program. So November 2nd was my last day at the Housing Authority, and I was a full-time entrepreneurship. So after that, still being conservative, we started building out, after testing the riskiest assumption through the manual MVP, we wanted to do something a little bit more technical. And here is the wireframes of our of our next MVP, which was an Envision website. An Envision wireframe site, which from here, you see the high level of all the little, of the functionality, or not the functionality, but the views that we were assuming that we needed, but we needed to test that. And the best way to test it with technology was to not code it out, but to wireframe it out using the Envision website. And what it allowed us to do was it gave us almost a mobile version that was clickable. So it was almost as if it was really coded out, but it wasn't. So I was super excited. This was like our first technical MVP, even though there was no code, but it really allowed us to make sure that we were asking the right questions in terms of the sign up process and what was really needed in terms of the property upload and the profile creation. We put this again in front of other landlords, realtors that, is, like I said, our target customer, and making sure that we were, building something that they needed. We also had more interns. This group was from OSU, where we used them from a program called Student Consulting Nonprofit Organizations, another great resource that helped us get a lot of market validation done and market research complete. We attended community conversations. This one here was Congresswoman Joyce Beatty's affordable housing community, where you not only heard the issues from the agency standpoint and the economic issues, but also the actual, tenants and landlords, and and also other leaders like myself, trying to make change in the affordable housing. So getting more feedback, but ultimately, what set this time apart and putting our solution, that Envision solution in front of, we put them in front of developers. That was, ultimately we were thinking more mobile, like a mobile application, and, really putting it in front of developers that was trying to understand the problem and help us develop it out to the best of our ability. I'll say from November of last year till February, we did all of what, we're on repeat as far as focus groups, community conversations, and just, putting, as much as we can in front of landlords and tenants and see what we needed to build. Like I said, back in February, our team started actually coding out what is our web application, customer relationship management solution, that is essentially taking all those pain points that I discussed earlier on in the presentation and putting them into that one platform, through our CRM, that provides the accountability, clarity, and efficiency that the affordable housing industry is in dire need of. So before, just the kind of high level, before I go too deep into, okay, I did not switch the slides, but that's fine. I can go about it this way. So just to give you guys a deeper look of the findings and the needs of it, and sorry for this picture in particular being blurry, but you'll have a better run through at the end where I'll loop the actual full demo of the product. But within our design thinking and user validation process and phases, we ended up coming up with, create a profile system like this, where we kind of took something similar to the Airbnb model. But for us, what's important is, like I said, the security, especially when it comes to landlords and verifying that. So being able to verify through our logo identification, and once a landlord signs up, we verify them through the county auditor site, which is the only source of truth in which you can find out if this is really a property owner. The things about the county auditor sites is that they aren't the most friendly platforms to use. The only reason why I know how to navigate it is because I worked for the housing authority, and one of my positions required me to look up and verify the property ownerships. So through this way, we have found a way to any landlord that signs up to our process through our platform will get verified through the auditor's site, which is automatically a good thing in terms of the reducing of the scams for the platform. We also detail out the rental history. This is at scale of the platform, but as the properties get posted, this landlord will be basically housing all these different properties, and it would be under one profile versus him having multiple profiles that could be searched in terms of the auditor site. All of that will be housed under one location. So really bettering that system. And then ultimately the performance scores and tenant testimonials of how the lease of how the lease and engagement actually happened. So we kind of took that Uber model of you can rate me, and the passenger can rate the driver, then driver can rate the passenger. And that's again to hold accountability of, preventing from slumlords and preventing bad tenants in the space. So this is a detailed version of the landlord profile. Here was the tenant profile, where you see the same components, but what's important for them and is more so the different agencies. So right now these says mountain and nature badges, but if you this feature is for agencies that are working with this particular particular tenant. So, for example, it would be, instead of mountain, it would be the Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority, where it would show that this is where your rental subsidy, and then it would allow those processes to be automated through this platform. But this is the bread and butter of our platform, and I wanted to make sure that this was highlighted before just showing the full demo of the product as we open it up for questions. But the profile system, as I've told many tenants when I was program participants, when I was still at the housing authority, finding affordable housing these days is like finding a job. And it's the best way. It's whoever sells themselves the best to the landlords really is how a lot of this stuff is being determined, to be quite frank. And in terms of these processes, there's a lot of need of automation and just to cut down on error and to just put more efficiency in these processes. And it's so the creation of this profile for both landlords and tenants were something that we spent a significant amount of work of validating and making sure that we did it before actually coding it out. We are currently at our MVP stage, our alpha test. So we started alpha testing the platform a little about 2 weeks ago, really, but officially we kind of announced it last week. And so out the box, our platform, our features is the tenant to landlord search, sign up and verification, so the verification of the landlords and the tenants, our rating system and performance score. You can post properties, user-to-user messaging. This is just for the automations of the process of different agency processes and forms, and then also the different data and analytics that our platform can collect in the different reports that can generate off of it. So with that, within 10 months of being in business, so like I said, I first pitched it in April, and really didn't get the business incorporated until January 1 of 2020. It was actually November, but I had the filing date set for January 1 of 2020, just so we can come into the year with a new slate, but was able to get a lot of traction and get a lot of things done. So our next kind of thing is to really go deeper into our alpha test phase with our landlord tenant process, really mastering that relationship. And so with the platform being ready, we are currently at the stage of building inventory for the property owners. So opening up and going to do more public registration within the next couple weeks when we get our incentive program together. But really spending the next about 60 days building up our landlord inventory to really be ready for about December 15th, end of the year, to be ready to take on what COVID has pushed our affordable housing crisis even more to the extremes, and this evictions that's going on. So really trying to be prepared for people to be able to use the platform and create their profiles and start that search process before the end of the year around Christmas time. So with that being said, I would like to demo this can just be playing throughout as people ask questions, but this is kind of the end of my talk, but here is the full demo that will be looping throughout as people ask questions or want to know anything more that they see on the screen.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And I can start with the first one as we look at this. But as you're building, launching, are you going to be taking a city-to-city approach for this, where you start in Columbus and then hit some mass, and then you go to Cleveland and then Cincinnati? Or what does your go-to-market look like?
Absolutely. So our go-to-market is, since our natural traction right now is in Central Ohio, I have a lot of good connections here. So the obvious first place of going to market and what we've really been targeting is Columbus, Central Ohio right now, and building here. But of our actual, it's looking like, in our first really big funding investment is really looking like it's going to come from Cincinnati. As definitely still learning about the market and the different crises, but this is a nationwide crisis that isn't specific to just Columbus alone, but we do want to capitalize of us being in Central Ohio in this test city, because it's a great place. The current eviction rate out of everywhere in Ohio, the current eviction rate has risen in Central Ohio. So we see a good opportunity to disrupt a lot of things within the affordable housing crisis. So starting here at Central Ohio, but once we really open up the platform in our later stage of the alpha test phase, it will be open to really anywhere throughout the state of Ohio. So we'll be able to see where traction is at in terms of where, like, should we, stay in Central Ohio as far as a focus, or is it getting more traction in a Cincinnati or a Cleveland, where it might make more sense to go there. But with our current validations and our current partnerships here, we're pretty confident that we'll have great initial traction here in Central Ohio, and then planning on scaling throughout the Ohio within the next 3 to 5 years.
That's great. And then another question, curious of, because I saw your fundraising or that's kind of coming up. Are you the only person working on this at the moment? And when you do fundraise or as you're doing that, what type of team members will you be adding?
Yeah. So I have a team of 8, including myself. And all this is as far as our development. I have a dev team of 3. All our MVP development, and this is at Enterprise Solutions. So we did not have a lot of money in our budget in terms of development, but this would not have been able to come to light if it was not for my team that I was able to form. Those 3 developers, one that comprised of our CTO, and then the other 2, one particular on the front and one on the back. And they really came in and during that pandemic, came in and provided some great dev hours for me and work, a lot of code, a lot of sweat equity, and just off of the belief and of my idea, but really knowing the true impact that our organization can bring, at scale. So we're definitely, in terms of the seed money that we're looking to raise moving forward, it will go towards the scale of the platform. So what you see today is all from, like I said, the features to the wireframing here. It's coded out, it's done. So we don't necessarily need to pay for this. So the next step for us is getting building up the inventory, and start getting the tenants to start using it and connecting it, so we can start then scaling it. Because what I have not talked about yet in this is that this is literally MVP, but there's so much more in terms of actually utilizing API strategy in order to bring services and to make exchange of information, not just data, but also services more readily available and quicker for this demographic. We also have got artificial intelligence and what that machine learning can do to help disrupt and predict behaviors within this. So we can get real pretty once we master our core product. So yeah. So in terms of the dev is fundraising for to actual hire on these devs, because they were not full-time working for me. All my developers have full-time jobs as well. I'm the only full-time employee of the company, but I'm lucky enough to have those 7 other individuals that have kind of latched on and been able to provide value and to get us this far. So definitely looking to start hiring in order to start developing the platform a little bit more deeper.
Hey, I have a comment and a question. Can I go?
Yes, please. Yeah, please,
Yeah,
Mike.
so this is Mike. So my comment is, I've known Jerry for a while, and as you can hear from his presentation, Jerry is fearless. And one of the things, I've been a sea change mentor for a few years, and what often happens with founders is they have a good idea, but they don't want to talk to customers. They don't want to get out and put their stuff in front of people for whatever reason. And Jerry's been fearless that way, and he still is, as you can see from his presentation. So I think that speaks to him as a founder and as an entrepreneur. So I wanted to put that out there. My question to you, Jerry, is what's the valuation basis that you have right now for Rent to Mentor? Because you're asking for 1.1 million. What's the basis of that valuation? And then are you looking for debt or equity funding? Thanks.
Yeah. So, and I'm new to the investor talk. I'm getting better at it, Mike. But we were talking about the valuation. Are you saying what valuation in terms of in which we use to get the 1.1?
Yes.
So, and this was around, I want to say it was 3.4 million. And with the current angel investors that we're in talks with in Cincinnati, they said that it was a little high for an early stage startup. But the reason why we were doing that we were able to value our our platform at this stage was because of how much IP that we really have developed in-house. In terms of, we're not greedy here in terms of how we're trying to get the investment. Of course, we want to keep as much of the company as possible, but we know we need that first big check in order to take it to other,